Hello everyone. In this session we are going to learn a HackerRank problem called cavity map. What does the problem statement say here is, you are given a square map as a matrix of integer strings, right? You'll be given a list of strings which consists of digits, and it will be a square one, right? Square matrix. Each cell of the map has a value denoting its depth, right? So each cell represents some value. We can consider that value as the depth. We will call a cell of a map a cavity if and only if this cell is not on the border of the map, right? The cells on the border are not cavity, but other than the ones on the border, right? So they can be cavity cells or not, but the remaining statement you can read for other conditions. It says we will call a cell of a map a cavity if and only if this cell is not on the border of the map and each cell adjacent to it has strictly smaller depth, right? All its cells adjacent to it has a value which is smaller, and two cells are adjacent if they have a common side or an edge. And your job is to find all the cavities on the map and replace their depths with the upper character x, but other things you have to retain it as it is. They have given an input here, and they have also given what should be the output and the explanation, right? And they have also given one more input out here, and then they also given explanation. Now for explaining the problem in more detail, I have taken one as this input and another a little bit modified form of this particular input, right? So let me just go back and try to explain the problem in more detail. The key points were captured here. If you want, you can pause this and then read the key points. Now this is the first input. Now if this is a input, what they said is like the adjacent cells are not cavity cells, so you don't need to bother about the adjacent cells. Other than the adjacent cells, we need to look into every other cell, and in case if it has a value which is greater when compared to all its adjacent, or you can say all its adjacent cells have a value which is lesser when compared to the specific cell, then we say that that particular cell has a cavity. Like for example, if you take up this 9, we need to compare this with all its adjacent, that is on top, down, left and right, and you can just see all these adjacent cells have a value which is lesser than value 9. So while printing, we have to replace it with x, right? Let us take one more example here. I have taken a matrix of 4 cross 4. Now again, as mentioned, you should forget about this border cells. We should never bother about the border cells, and we have to look into the other cells. Now first one, what will we take up? We'll take up this 9. Should we replace with x? And the answer is yes, we have to replace because 9 is greater when compared to all adjacent, right? Then next we take up this 1. Should we replace? No, because the adjacent cells 9, 2, 7 is actually greater when compared to 1. So 1 will be written as it will not be replaced with x. The next cell what should use it is 6, right? This particular cell which has a value 6. Should we replace this? No, because 7 and 9, that is up and right, they have a value which is greater than 6. Now take up this 7. Yes, we have to replace it with x. Please remember, only up, down, left, right. You should not compare it with this one here. Please don't compare it with this, right? Don't do this. Only up, down, left and right, right? So it should be replaced. And since it is in a matrix form, you have the row index and column index and all. To understand better, right, how do we check the row index, previous row element, next row element, previous column element, next column element? Write down the matrix indexes like this and then try to understand okay, how does the index value change? Like for example, let us say if I consider this 9, right? So if I want to look up for the top, or you can say the cell on the upside, what do you see? Okay, between this cell, what you have it here and here, what is common and what is not common? Row index is common or column index is common, right? The row index is decreasing here, the column index is remaining the same. This part is remaining same, wherein this part is changing, this part is changing. Got it? Now if you look at down, again, okay, column index remains the same, but row index here increments by 1, right? Whereas if you look into the column, the left and right here, so if you see left and right, they're in the same row, they're in the same row. The column index decrements, the column index increments, right? Okay, now based on that, I have basically written down the statement, like if it is 1 cross 1, then what is left, right, up, down. Then for the next one, right, it is 1 cross 2, what should be the left, right, right, and observe the pattern. How does the left, right, up and down change based on the index of the key, based on the index of the key, right? We have to basically generate the code which, okay, to write the code to generate the indexes. Once you can generate the indexes, we can always access the values, and once you can access the values, you can use it for comparison, right? Okay, I hope the problem is understood clearly, right? If you're not understood, replay the problem and then you can give it a try to solve on your own, right? And after that, come back and see how I'm solving it. Now here is the code to read the input. Since they mentioned that it will be a square matrix of n cross n, I have read the value of the order of the map, which is n, and then here if you can just observe, I have created an array of n cross n plus 1. The reason why I have used n cross n plus 1 is we'll be entering the input as a string format, right? So if you enter a string, the number of rows are written as n, but the strings also have the null character, right? So in order to make room for the null character, I've just written n plus 1, right? It's only for the retaining the null character, space for the null character. And this is how we need to read the input, right? Generally it is already given in the hacker rank also to read the input. The next thing what I'd like to do it is, I'd like to make a copy of this map, right? So in order to make a copy, I'll just create one more array. I'll just call it as result array, and then of the same size here. After this, I'd like to make a copy. If you want to make a copy, you can run a for loop and you can use a string copy. Instead of that, we can basically use memcpy, memcopy, right? The first argument is a destination, which is a result. Second one is a source, and then third one is the size, right? So this one will copy the entire matrix in one statement without using any loops. This will copy the entire data, what is captured, what is present in the map, to the result array, right? And I would like to modify in the result array, not in the original one. Now I need to traverse the matrix. Since I need to neglect the first row, first column, last row and last column, for that purpose I'm going to start with 1. This is to, okay, because I will basically tells you information the row. I want to skip the first row, so I would like to start with the value I equal to 1 and I less than n minus 1. This minus 1 is because I don't want to go consider the last row, right? And then when you start with column and I want to skip the first column, so I'll start with 1 and j equal to n minus 1. This minus 1 is to skip the column, last column. This is for the last column to skip, right? So we have basically seen the starting and the ending side. Now the cell, whatever you want to take it and compare with the adjacent cells, let me just call that as key, and that I'll just capture it as I of j, right? Ith and jth column element. Then I want to compare with up, down, left, right. So we have seen that, okay, for the up, what will be the row index, column index. Based on that, we'll just capture into separate variables. We'll just say up, right? In the up, what happens? Are we in the same row or in the previous row? The up, right? If you want, you can refer back to the question, understand up is the previous row. So I'll just be using the previous row, column wise, same column. Down, right? Down is next row, column is same. It's up and down. Then for the left and right, left equal to, what happens here? Row remains the same, the column is the previous column, and for the right equal to, row remains the same, column will be the next one. So once we have captured this, then we can compare it. It's easy for us to compare, right? And the benefit of capturing this into separate variables is, like, you can always use the watch window and check out that have you captured this up, down, left and right values properly or not, right? Now I'd like to start the comparison. If the key element, if it is greater when compared to up and key is greater when compared to down, right, and key is greater when compared to left and key greater when compared to right, then what should I do? I need to replace. I'll be replacing it in the result one, not in the original one. The reason why I'm doing it is, if I replace that value with X, then for the next cell, if I want to compare with the previous cell, or right, then if I replace the value, I'll not be able to fetch that value. So I will like to retain the original array as it is. Whatever the modifications, I would like to do it in the result array, right? Ith of j should be set to X, otherwise not. Now once we do this, we need to print. Now to print, what we can do it is, we can just use this, but instead of the map, we have to print the value of result, right? No space required here, and then we also require a \n, and it is not scanf, it is printf, right? Now let's try to run this. So what input to be given? You can see the input values from the HackerRank problem, and then you can run this. So first I'm trying to compile it and then try to execute this. I'd like to work with the first input, which is 3, and then I'd like to work with the given input 989. Please don't give any spacing here. 191 111, right? Output is as per expectations. Now if you want to verify with other input, you can verify with the other input what is given in out here. So you can just take up this code, try to run this. I'll not close this. I'd like to run, and I'd like to see the input here. What is the order? 4, right? And then I'd like to enter it as 1112 1912 1892. Remember, this is a little bit different when compared to what I use in the slide. 1 2 3 4. What is the output? 1112 1x12 18x2 1 2 3 4. Now things are working fine. Then we, okay, since it's working fine, so to verify it is really passing all the test cases or not, I'll take this and put it on. I just commented this statement, the input statement. I'm just going to take this, put it in the HackerRank platform. I'm using it in C. I'm going to run this. Let's pass the sample test cases. I'd like to run this, right? The reason why I had to use a little bit of modified one in the slide explanation is, when you take up this, the only things which were changing out here was 9. Everything else was same. So you should not think that wherever there is 9, it should be replaced with X. It's okay for that purpose. I've taken a different input. You can basically check out with the other inputs and I can understand. I hope the problem is clear and okay, you are able to understand the problem as well as the solution. The next task is, we can actually do this without creating a resultant array. You don't really need to capture the result array and then modify the result array, right? You can just start printing the elements. You take up the input and after start printing the elements. If it is the corner cells, print the element as it is. If it is not a corner cell, verify the up, down, left, right, then either print X or either print the existing value. If you want to do this, you really don't require this. You start with 0 because I want to print directly from first row, first column to last row, last column. Now here what we'll try to do it is, we'll basically verify if you are in the border. It's a border cell. How will you verify if it is border? I equal to 0 means you are in the first row, which is border, or j equal to 0. So I equal to 0 in the sense first row, j equal to 0 in the sense first column. Either you are in first row or last row or last column, last row. What will be the value of I? I will be equal to n minus 1 if it is last row, and then j will be equal to last column, right? N minus 1. Then we should print as it is. We should not do any kind of comparison. We will directly print the value, right? I'm just going to use %c, then map of I of j, right? These are border cells. If it is not a border cell, what will I do? I will capture this information very same, and here instead of capturing the result, I'll print X, right? I print F. Okay. Otherwise, I will try to print the same element, this element. But remember, after every row, you need to print a new line. So for that particular case, I'm going to use just to print a new line after every row, right? This is the end of else part, and in a for loop, printf \n, close it, right? I'm not using the result array at all. If you just observe, I'm not using any result array at all. I'd like to compile this and then I would like to run this program, right? Since I commented the printf, I need to start giving the input. Now, first thing is the order. It is 3 cross 3, 9, 9, 8, 9, 1, 9, 1, 1, 1, 1. Are we getting it? So we can verify with other inputs. I'd like to take this one and again put it into the HackerRank problem. I'm going to replace this. Please do observe the one what I've placed here. There is no result. There is no result. There's no mem copy, right? Directly printing it here. I'd like to verify, right? So this again shows you that we can solve a particular problem in different ways. We can solve a particular problem in different ways, right? So you have to think of solving the problem in different ways. Fine. If you have any better solutions, you can post it in the comments. Thank you.